The camera lady and I have made and sold many hundreds of wooden spoons, and we power carve most of them for a number of reasons. As a maker of hand tools myself, I certainly have nothing against hand carving, but power carving is much easier on the body and allows you to use woods that are beautiful and durable, but much too tough to hand carve at any volume. Like this honey locust ladle, for instance. Here's our general process for making spoons like this. We started with a buttress cut from the tree. These sections are nice for serving spoons because the natural sweep of the grain as it transitions from trunk to roots can be conserved in the cranked shape of the spoon. Splitting along the curve of the growth rings will also help capture the grain sweep. Even with thoroughly scoring the line first, sometimes it takes quite a bit of persuasion to get the split to start. I might mention that we do not cut down trees. We get our wood from an arborist dump site in Kansas City where we live. And for that reason, we're also stuck working with whatever random lengths show up, and that was the case with this buttress piece. I'm sawing in this dimension instead of splitting because this particular tree doesn't split clean on the radial plane, and there would be a lot of waste, but also significant risk of cracks running into the blanks. The sapwood has some big gnarly bark inclusions, which can be pretty, but are not very sound or stable for an item that will be subjected to lots of heat and moisture, so I'm splitting that off too. And after trimming the sides again with the saw, I'm left with what looks like a good blank. As suspected, this is way too tough to work with hand tools, so we're going right to the power methods. Katrina uses the Arbortech Turbo Plane to even out the area that will become the rim of the spoon bowl, following the grain curvature as much as possible. The Turbo Plane also quickly scoops out the bulk of the bowl cavity. The Turbo Plane is our most versatile and by far our most used power carving bit. But this tool, the Arbortech Mini Carver, is hands down the very best for making spoon bowls in particular, especially deep ones. And Katrina's using it here to deepen and refine the rough cavity. Any remaining tool marks and unevenness is taken out with a rounded card scraper. This step saves a lot of sanding later on. Moving on to the bandsaw, the first thing I'll do is flatten the bottom so that it sits stable without wobbling around on that rough split surface. Then cut the basic profile, and I do save a lot of these larger offcuts to make knife handles or smaller utensils. As I start sculpting this down more, I'm going to be making some advanced maneuvers that you should be aware are pretty dangerous if you don't understand what you're doing. This is a very aggressive blade I'm using. It's 3 teeth per inch, which helps a lot working with greenwood, but it also could snag that workpiece at any moment. So notice I'm making a lot of little short, straight nibbles, and for the most part avoiding tilting the workpiece into the blade. Never force it, of course, and the closer the point of contact between the blade and the wood is to the table, the better. This is the type of approach that is especially dangerous, tilting into the blade and making contact up high. Again, not totally safe, but much safer to tilt away and make contact down low like this. I could spend several more minutes with the bandsaw using it basically as a power rasp like I am here, but I would rather take off my respirator, sit down, and do some of the intermediate shaping with hand tools. When I said earlier that this wood is too tough to hand carve, I didn't mean impossible, just very difficult and requiring lots of extra force and effort, which is hard on the body as well as on hand tools. I'm just spending a few minutes here, slimming the spoon down to a small enough dimension and thickness that I'm pretty sure it won't crack as it dries. Being thinner means it has more surface area relative to its volume, which means it can dry more evenly, which means less strain builds up in the wood, which means lower chance of cracks. And this is where I'm going to leave it and let it dry for at least a week or two before doing the final shaping and finishing with power abrasives. Once it's dry enough, I begin the sanding steps by working the inside of the bowl with the Arbortech Contour Sander in a grit progression of 60 to 120 to 180. We find it easiest to finish the inside of the bowl first and then match the outside curvature to it. This Grizzly inflatable drum sander is great for that, as well as slimming and blending all the contours and facets. The last of the power sanding is to work over the entire exterior with 150 grit on a random orbital sander. Finally, wet sanding with about a 180 grit sanding sponge will make sure that it doesn't get rough and splintery when it gets wet in the future. After it dries from the wet sanding, it's ready for oil. We like olive oil as a finish because most people cook with it already, so it's likely going to be getting into the wood anyway. And claims that olive oil goes rancid when used as a wood finish are completely untrue. Two things it seems like every aspiring spoon maker wants to know are how long did that take and how much can you sell it for? With our extensive experience and shop full of the very best tools for doing this kind of work, it takes us about an hour of hands-on time to make a ladle like this from the log, and I do expect this one to sell for at least 50 bucks. Now, you can do the same quality of work with a more pared down and budget-friendly tooling setup, but it does take longer. But there are links to a lot of the tools we use in the description, and please feel free to ask questions in the comments. Thanks for watching.